In Psalm 27, verse 4, which I like to share with you from the New King James Version, there's a marvelous story about David. I think that, and I can't be certain of this, but I think David may have been reflecting back on his youthful life from an older age. So he's got some wisdom, I think, as he shares these thoughts. The scene he seems to be setting up is perhaps he, a general of the army, and the king is standing on a wall of Jerusalem, and he sees some things. Now, if you were a general and you saw these things, what would you do? Well, let me show you what I think he saw. In Psalm 27, starting with verse 2, he says, "When the wicked came against me to eat up my flesh, my enemies and my foes, they stumbled and fell. Though an army may encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war may rise against me, in this I will be confident." Now, I'm going to say something here I can't back up, but I think David was reflecting on events of the past. Maybe there was a day when he stood on the walls of Jerusalem, like I said. He looks out across the valley and out upon the plain, and he sees an army coming toward him. What would you do if you were a general, if you were the king of that nation, you saw an army come? Well, not only does he see it coming, but as he stands there, he watches them cross the valley and encamp, as it says here, they encamp below the walls. Oh my goodness, and he's watching, he's looking down, and there they are. Well, not only do they encamp, but he goes on to say, though they rise against me. I have a picture in my mind of the enemy putting siege ladders up against that wall. Now, what would David do if he watched all this? He's the general, he's the king. I think he would call his armies. They would sound the shofar, and he would say, "Men, gather around me, gird on your swords, we're going after these guys." David was a strong man. He was a good warrior-type king. He knew how to fight, and he wasn't afraid. He faced Goliath. He was a brave, courageous man. I believe God made him that way. But here he is, looking at an enemy coming up the wall. How many enemies do we have that are coming up the wall at us? What would we do if our life was in danger? What would we do if our family's life was in danger? What would we do if we were facing the demise or the failure of an investment that was falling apart for whatever reason? How would we handle that? Well, let me suggest that David, in his latter years, may have been reflecting back on that, and he shares with us some really important wisdom. So let me read verse 4 to you. In verse 4, he said, "One thing I have desired of the Lord, that will I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple." Now, if you ask me, I would say, what? This is defeat. David is not facing the enemy. He's turning his back on the enemy. He's running toward the temple. He wants to go into the temple. It sounds like he's really wimping out. But I don't think so. What I think we're seeing here is so encouraging to each one of us, because we have enemies coming up the wall. There are all kinds of life circumstances that want to take us down. But what I think David is reflecting on is exactly what we need for the day and age we live in. He said, "One thing have I desired of the Lord." Interesting, just one thing. There might have been many things. Do we have enough soldiers? Do we have enough swords? Do we have enough time? No. David said, no, there's just one thing. He wants to dwell in the house of the Lord. But obviously, David's a king. He can't go into the temple. He has no right to get in there. So what does he mean? I think David's talking about a faith issue. He's saying, I know I can't go in the temple, but I want to be close to God. This is a time when I need his counsel. This is a time when I need his love. This is an overwhelming enemy I'm dealing with, I want to be in his presence. David could only do that by faith. But precisely what was it that he wanted to do when he got in the temple? And this is what's so sweet. David said that he might behold the beauty of the Lord. Now, if you were a general, you might want to have your general assistants around you who are giving you battle plans and telling you how much weaponry you have. And that's kind of ugly in a sense. David wants to view the beauty of the Lord. The beauty of the Lord cannot be seen by the eye. It can only be seen by faith. Jesus is not here bodily, but he is here through the Spirit as revealed in the Word of God. David is meditating and reflecting on the very character of Christ. What he needs in the face of real hostility is the mind of God. He needs to look at the truth. What is God's plan for this issue? It's beautiful because it's holy, it's righteous, it's the right thing. David perhaps is an old man who's learned to seek the wisdom of God, which is beautiful compared to man's wisdom, which fails so often. It's the heart of God that says, hey, David, I love you. I'm in your corner. I'll fight your battles for you. I have the strength. I've got the holiness. I got the righteousness. I can handle this. That's what he wanted to look upon. So what question might come to mind? There are enemies coming toward us, life circumstances. They camp at the base of the wall. They throw up their siege ladders, and man, we got problems coming quickly. What do? Our first line of attack, like David, is, I got to solve this problem. I need to enter the fray. And David's saying, no, there's just one thing I'm going to do. I'm going to retreat into God's presence. Isn't that godly wisdom? Whatever issue you're facing right now, and there are many, I'm sure, our best ploy is to retreat into the presence of the Lord, who gives us help, gives us courage, wisdom, gives us understanding of the issues we're facing, and then gives us the resolution. David didn't wimp out. David, in strength, did what strong men really do. That is, as Paul defined them, when I'm weak, yet am I strong. David, knowing he needed help beyond himself, went for just one thing, into the presence of the Lord, to gaze upon his beauty, the holiness of God. It's our birthright to enjoy it.